As you now know, all shapes in Illustrator are created using points, paths, fills, and strokes. But you can take this one step further, in fact many steps further, by cutting and separating points and paths and joining them to other segments to create brand new shapes and forms. Then we'll create a custom button shape for our website homepage by throwing together a selection of the techniques that we've learned so far. Let's start out by just doing a quick exercise in how Illustrator deals with joining points and paths together and how we can separate those. I'm going to make sure that we're on our logos layer here in the layers palette, and let's drag over and look at the left hand sort of spare space we have. We're just going to play around in here for a little while. Now what we're going to do is start out by drawing a circle. So come over here and choose your ellipse tool from the tools, hold down your shift key, click and drag your shape. It doesn't really matter how big it is. I'm going for roughly 200 millimeters, something like that. Do make sure though that you hold down the shift to constrain it to a circle. Now let's say we want to slice the top of this shape off, okay, as if we sort of draw a straight line through here and separate the top half from the bottom half. All right, now we can do this any number of ways. Over here in the tools we have the eraser tool. Now if we click and hold on that, you'll see we have a scissors tool and a knife tool. Now the scissors tool is used to basically click points around the outside of the path to generate new ones and to cut the path at those points. But the knife tool is actually the fastest and easiest way to do something. If you really want to just slice through an object and quickly separate two individual paths, this is the one for us. So this is what we're going to use. Go ahead and select that. And very simply, click and drag here through the object at any angle, okay? And you can see exactly what's going on. It cuts the two pieces visually together. Looks like we've generated an extra path there. But if we go back to our selection tool, click here, reselect, and move out, you can see it has indeed created two separate paths based on the shape that we drew. That's very cool. Actually looks like a hard-boiled egg here that we've taken the top of. What I'm going to do is undo a couple of steps so we go back to the original shape. This time, go back to the knife tool and hold down the Option key or the Alt on the PC and your Shift key. Now as we click and drag through the object, you'll see we get a perfectly straight line, and that allows us to do a very clean and tidy segment there, okay? So once again, if we go back to the selection tool and only select the bottom part and delete, we're now left with our top segment, which is exactly what we're looking for. Now, even though we have a fill here, we can go to outline mode and see that we do indeed have a closed shape. This is where the scissors tool is different. It wouldn't actually give us a path through the bottom here. But what we can do to get rid of that is get the direct selection tool, click on the path between the 2 points. So all we're doing is selecting this path segment and hit the delete key to remove it. All right. Now when we go back to preview mode, it will look the same, but we know that it's an open path. So for now, let's stay in outline mode. All right. Now if we go back to the main selection tool, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. What we want to do is show you how we could create something like a smooth wavy line where we have a path that comes up and down like this one does. Then we have an exact sort of 180-degree rotation one which continues on from up here, and then essentially we could continue duplicating that and getting a nice long wavy pattern. Well, easy enough to do to make a duplicate. We Option drag a copy of our path, as you know already how to do. Let's go to Free Transform with the E key. Hold down the Shift key to constrain our rotation as we drag around the outside and take yourself to 180 degrees, okay? If we now go back to the main selection tool, let's just move this over here so the points are somewhat different in their location, all right? And we can see how Illustrator joins these things together. Now, if we go ahead and select both paths, we've got the selection tool here, so we're picking up all of the points, the entire objects themselves. If we press Command J or Control J on the PC, that will join the two paths together using the two closest points. And in this case, it's a straight line. It's not what we want, but in some instances that can be very handy. And in fact, we will use that in a short while. So go ahead and undo that. What we can do instead is take our path, make sure we grab our anchor point, okay? Go over and drag it on top of the other one until we get our intersection, okay? Now you can always zoom in and just check to see how we're looking there. Even at 6400%, that looks pretty good to me, all right? But our smart guides, they're called smart for a reason, okay? Now, we've got two separate paths here, same thing, 1 and 2. We want to join these two paths where they overlap. So this time, let's use the direct selection tool, click and drag to highlight both of those points where they overlap. You see the other ones are hollow. Then again, all we have to do is Command J or Control J on the PC to join those together. If we now go back to our main selection tool and go to preview mode, we can see a straight line that joins them because again, we have a fill, but if we select it, this is all one object. At this time, if we pressed Shift X, remember that keyboard shortcut from way back at the beginning, that will switch our fill and stroke. So we now have no fill, but a gray stroke. So let's go ahead and change that so we can see what's happening. Let's click on the stroke icon over here and maybe change it to just the default black. And then come down here to the thickness and, I don't know, let's go up to maybe 20 point, something like that, okay? So now you can see a very smooth, consistent line because we join these points here in the center. This is one continuous path. Now, whilst we're here, let's go into the stroke panel and take a look at one other option. Let's go ahead and show the options there. We could also add our rounded cap at the end just to smooth that off. And down here at the bottom is a very nice little feature called Profile. This is kind of cool. If we pull up the options here, we can apply a profile that changes the width of the stroke as it goes along. This is very different to using brushes. That's a whole separate side of Illustrator. But this profile option is new in CS5 and I just think is really very nice. It's a very cool and easy way to style your strokes but make them editable as we move forward. So I really just wanted to point that out very quickly for you. Now I'm going to go ahead and close that up because I do want to show you one other option here. If you look down in your swatches palette, now you probably won't see this, or you'll see some of it but not all of it. But I've noticed here that I've spelt flag red wrong. I've actually spelt it glag red, which I think is hilarious. Now I could tell you that I did this on purpose to show you a cool workaround, but you probably wouldn't believe me. However, if I do make the project files here too perfect, you're not actually going to be presented with challenges that you would undoubtedly face in the real world. So perhaps this is a blessing in disguise. Now, as you can see, what's basically happened is we copied and pasted our logo artwork in. You remember the new logo we created at the bottom of our page. And that had a swatch in it called flag red. Because I generated one by mistake in here called glag red, we have two. Not the end of the world, but it would be much better if they were one and the same name, okay? Now, this doesn't mean that we have to go through the whole document and select one or the other where it's been used and reapply the new swatch to it. What we can do is a function called merge swatches. So I quickly want to show you that because, like I say, you cut and paste from other documents, this thing can happen. So I'm going to deselect just so we don't recolor anything else, and this is a very simple process. I'm going to select flag red as our swatch because this is the one we want to keep. Then I'm going to hold down Command or Control on the PC and click on the other one, glag red. Now, like I say, you probably won't have this because I'm sure you spelt it right. If those two are now selected in that order, the first one is the one you wish to keep, you can now come up here to the swatches panel and go ahead and choose merge swatches. All right. Anything on the page that then used the old color has now been merged in to use the new one. Now, one thing you might also see is we created a swatch earlier called dense black. You'll notice that the dense black that was in our logo file doesn't have a space in it. So essentially, we have the same issue. So it's up to you whichever one you want to keep. We can go ahead and select dense black first, Command or Control click on the PC on the second swatch, and once again, go back up to the flyout and choose to merge those swatches. All right, so just a little bit of simple housekeeping there. But like I say, this is a situation you may come across, and I'm glad that I actually got to point it out to you.